Brandon Scott from Sports Radio 610 here with Houston Dynamo General Manager Pat Onstad. Pat, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing great, Brandon. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, it's always a pleasure to talk to you guys. Y'all got a lot of exciting things going over there at Shell. The season that you guys had last year. First of all, let's start with this: the banner raising for the U.S. Open Cup. First of all, I want to know from you what, aside from winning that cup, was kind of the standout moment for you, the thing, the kind of the most memorable part of that when that banner goes up, aside from winning it, what are you going to think about the most?
I was fortunate. I was part of this team as a player back when we moved from San Jose here in 2006, and we won a few trophies with that group of players. But what I think I'll be most proud of is that with a completely new set of players and a team that really over about 2 years kind of gelled together, and we're able to find a way to win a trophy. And I thought the game itself that you talked about, that was probably the highlight of this. The banner will be very nice, and it's probably more for the fans than it is for the players. But that moment was pretty special last year with this group.
What about this matchup with Kansas City, Sporting Kansas City? I know this has got to be. I don't think it's revealing anything to anybody to call this a rivalry. Do you feel like that matchup, considering y'all's background last year and previous matchups, that provides the right kind of juice that a home opener like this deserves and calls for?
Yeah, it's a big one. We don't like Kansas City, and they don't like us, so that's the best thing. We eliminated them last year. That was the last game of their season. On our way to the Western Conference Final. So they're a good team. They got a great coach in Peter Vermees, who's been around the league now for a long time, and does a great job of making sure his team is prepared. But I think we just went through a super tough game yesterday against St. Louis, and I think we'll be very prepared for Saturday and the level of play that's going to be needed to beat them.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about St. Louis in a little bit, but
Sure.
before we do that, I do want to talk about the offseason. You guys made a priority some of your core players, but also brought in some new faces. Can you walk me through a little bit of what this offseason was all about and what you guys were trying to accomplish and trying to, take that next step and elevate from what was already a really incredible season?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were pretty pleased with the group that we brought in. We made 17 changes from 22 to 23. It was probably too many changes than you want to make in an offseason. This season, we pivoted and made very few. Probably still need to add 2 to 3 more pieces if we can in this window, and we're still working on that. But for us, the biggest one really was to make sure that we retain some of the core guys that we felt were important. We re-signed Griffin Dorsey, our right back, to a new contract, which was really important for us as he was a free agent. We lost Corey Baird, who scored the most goals for us last year, to free agency. But we made sure it was also a priority to re-sign guys that we think had played well for us. And Coco Carrasquilla, for example, was a signing we just announced last week. And that was a priority for us to make sure that we have the core group of our guys back for this season, and we can defend not only the U.S. Open Cup, but also try to make a real run at in the league.
Could you tell us about with Coco and Griffin, like what it is exactly they provide? Obviously, they're core guys, but what is it about them, the quality that they bring that make them such a priority for you?
Yeah, it was an interesting year last year because we sat down, we said, here's how we want to play, and it probably took us through halfway through the season until July until we realized what we were going to look like as a team and how we were going to play. And I thought, Ben Olsen and his coaching staff did a great job to kind of identify the best positions for each guy. Coco Carrasquilla is usually a central midfielder. We play him now on the right, and he comes inside when we're attacking, becomes central then, but defensively he defends out in the wing, which is new to him, and he had to learn that position. But the nice thing about him, because he's central, he comes inside, and we figured out Griffin Dorsey is an absolute animal and can run up and down all day. And we've been able to get behind on that side with Griffin. So it took time for us to develop that, but those guys on our right-hand side and the right side of our attack are key to our success. And even against St. Louis, you could see the trouble that they were causing St. Louis at times.
Yeah, so in St. Louis, you guys played them earlier in the week. Going to play them again next week. What are you learning about the squad in these early matches? What is the matchup against St. Louis telling you about you guys early on?
Yeah, we learned a lot, I think, last night. So it was the first leg, and for the viewers out there, we have CONCACAF Champions Cup, which is a different competition. I know our sport has a lot of different competitions, but this one includes Central America and Mexico and the U.S., and it's all either the champions or the top teams in each league, and they play off one another, and you try to go to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So this is the first round. We drew an MLS team, which was a little disappointing in the sense we wanted to have the experience of playing a Mexican team or, Central American team. But we had the first leg last night, so it's over 2 games. We lost 2-1 late. Unfortunately, we get the late goal. But I think for us, what we saw last night is we saw some young guys and guys who haven't been getting many opportunities for us over the last year really step up. Brooklyn Reigns had a fantastic game for us as a 19-year-old kid in central midfield, actually maybe 18, might be making him older than he actually is. And he played like a man in there, and he's replacing Hector Herrera, who's one of the best players in the league. So he had a great one. Sebastian Kowalczyk played very well. Another young player we have, Aliou Ibrahim, set up the goal and had one called back from some mysterious call, but had a great game as well. So 3 guys that we're really counting on this year stepped up in that game. And I think for Ben and his staff, and certainly from the executive staff, myself and Asher Mendelson, we're pretty pleased on the performance. Disappointed in the result, but really pleased with the performance.
Yeah. So as the GM and as a former player, articulate for us the value in those younger players having that opportunity to experience, preseason with the veterans and meshing those guys in together.
Yeah, I mean, we actually brought in a lot this preseason. We had a lot of our academy players, so we had like 16, 17-year-old kids playing with the first team. And it's an important experience where these guys get to see what it's like to be in a first-team locker room. We had a couple of guys from our second team actually dressed last night. While it was pretty highly unlikely they were going to get on the field, they got to sit on the sideline. They're on the bench. They get to watch what's happening. And I think for these guys, you hope that when they're given the opportunity that it's not too big for them. It's not the first time they've been in that locker room. It's not the first time they've seen how players react to giving up a late goal or having to adjust at halftime. So the experiences that you can give these guys at an early age is, it's priceless. And I think for Brooklyn Reigns is a great example of a young kid that's had 2 years now where he's been in and out of the first team, playing with our second team. And he's grabbed the opportunity over the last couple of weeks here with the first team. And we're really excited for him.
All right, so you guys are going to have to navigate at least 4 competitions this year. Obviously, the MLS. You mentioned, the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Did I say that correctly, Pat?
Pretty good CONCACAF Champions Cup. Yeah,
I got close. Every now and then, that Southeast Texas is just going to ruin.
Yeah, this is like horseshoes. As long as you're getting close, it's fine.
That's right. I appreciate that. And then, of course, there's the Leagues Cup, the U.S. Open Cup, as we talked about earlier when we kicked this off. What is sort of the challenge of that and the significance of that, and then of course the benefit for you guys overall as a squad and having that experience?
Yeah, the experience, and I'll even go back again. Don't want to keep harping on Brooklyn Reigns, but he got the opportunity against St. Louis because it was CONCACAF Champions Cup. We have a team that isn't very deep at this stage of the season. One of it's we haven't been able to get some deals across the line to give us a little more depth. But we also, this is really, last year was our first year of success, and you try to build off that by retaining your core, which we did. And then you have to just keep adjusting the pieces beyond it so you get a really good full team. And we're probably still a year or so away from that. We're getting close. We have a pretty good group, but it's not terribly deep. So for us to make a deep run in CONCACAF Champions Cup is going to probably eat into our MLS season and our results there. So we're being relatively careful to make sure that we're ready to play Kansas City in a league game. So you have all these things that you're juggling in the air as a coach, as a management group, and you're trying to put your best team out week in, week out. The nice thing is for us, for coaches and for executive stuff, it doesn't matter. We're sitting there trying to move the pieces around, keep everyone fresh. But the guys in the locker room, they don't care. You throw a ball out there, they want to win. So it's nice that we have that type of atmosphere in our locker room now, where these guys push one another and they're next man up. And pretty excited about the way our group is headed this season, and hopefully we can continue it in all these competitions.
So I know in your position, I'd imagine anyway, you prefer to talk about the team, talk about the other guys. But since I do have you here, since we do have the time, it's like rare access. I got the GM here. I do want to ask you about your journey. You talked about having played before. It's well over a decade now ago when you
Yep.
played for the Dynamo.
Well over a decade.
Yeah,
Well over a decade.
and
Yeah.
and it's wild to see. So your time there is sort of my time it coincides with my time in college, but and so I'm just thinking about how long ago all of that is, and I'm sure
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
imagine. But I'm curious for you, at what point did you sort of feel like or think that this would be the direction you would want to go in a post playing career? How did you navigate toward former player? And so I know you coached for a while, but when did you know that you wanted to do this?
Yeah, I don't think I ever thought of it. When I played, I was focused on playing, and like most players, thought, "Oh, one day I'll be a head coach. I can do what these guys do." And then once I got into that and realized like how difficult it is as a head coach, I was very fortunate here. Had a great coach in Dominic Kinnear that was here for the 5 years that I was here, and he coached me for 3 years before in San Jose. Fantastic coach. He's still in the league in Cincinnati as an assistant coach. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of pressure. And I was having a tough time deciding where to go. So as there was a transition in Columbus, I was working there with Greg Berhalter, who's the U.S. men's national team coach, with his staff. And there was a transition moment where I was going to stay behind. And most of the staff was moving to Chicago, and I stayed behind in Columbus. And they were looking for a technical director. I thought I'd give it a shot. And it's literally within about 2 months, I was like, this is where I want to go. GM is what I'd like to do. I love it, and I don't miss coaching. It's a very stressful position, as is a GM, but I'm learning every day, and it's a lot of fun. You try to surround yourself with great people, and I think I'm pretty proud that we have a great group here that I work with, and we have a lot of fun coming in every day. But at the same token, everybody here is just trying to make us better on a daily basis.
That's interesting to me because being a GM is stressful, being a coach is stressful. It's just it's a different job and it's a different type of stress. What is it about the GM role or that job that better suits you, your personality, and just kind of how you the type of jobs you wanted to do?
Yeah, it might have been because I was a goalkeeper, and I think as a goalkeeper, you can't score goals. You're not winning a game. Like that's not what goalkeepers do. Goalkeepers save games. That's what they do. So, and then you've got to convince guys to do the work that they can't stand doing. Hey, we had Dwayne De Rosero, who was a fantastic player in the league, attacking player, and you've got to try to convince him. In the 83rd minute when he's exhausted, like in this July heat in Houston. Hey, I need you to run back and chase a guy 40 yards and defend the box. He's looking at you like, you kidding? I already scored 2 goals. That's your job. So I think you learn kind of how to negotiate on the fly and make sure that you're kind of unifying everyone. So that was one thing I think that I enjoy. Certainly one part of the job that I have now that I really enjoy. But like I said before, I didn't know that this would be something that I would gravitate towards. But I've enjoyed it. And I think also for me, this being my first GM job, being here in Houston, where I felt a real tight connection with the community. I mean, the fans when we moved here were unbelievable. My family, my daughter was born here. My wife and I love Houston. So I really felt like a connection to not just to the fans, but to the city. And then I think that's also where the pressure comes from. So now I feel responsibility. Like we need to get this team on the right track. We had a great year last year, but now we need to keep building on that. We need to consistently, competing for championships. And so I love that responsibility. And maybe it all goes back. Who knows? My upbringing, I guess. Maybe I could put it to my parents, but they did a pretty good job, and they seem to always be able. I always seem to be able to find these kind of leadership positions. So I'm pretty pleased with where I am right now.
All right, Pat, let's revisit this before we get out of here. Sell the viewers, our audience on this experience, this home opener for you guys at Shell Energy Stadium, Saturday, February 24th. Historic rivals here with you guys, Sporting Kansas City. Kickoffs at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. You guys are unveiling the banner from the U.S. Open Cup Championship, as we talked about earlier, going up against a rival. Sell this atmosphere, sell this experience. What are people in for? for this moment, for this exact
Yeah,
moment?
well, I mean, a couple of things. I think you're going to see a great game of soccer. The way we play, we go right through the middle of teams. The teams are high press us like St. Louis did on last night, and we're going to play right through them. We're going to play our style, possess the ball, and try to attack teams and break them down. And I think it's fun to watch the way we play. Having said that, so will Kansas City. So it'll be a nice dichotomy of two styles to a certain extent. But we knocked them out last year, like I'd mentioned earlier. So they'll have some, it'll be a little bit feisty. But for us, it's the way we start the season. Like we need to get out to a good start. We play a lot of home games out of the gate, and then also with the banner coming down for us, the support that we had down the stretch last year. Especially in the playoffs, was fantastic. My understanding is we're very close to a sellout, if not there yet. Pretty close for the home opener. So I think the atmosphere is going to be buzzing. It's also going to be a great night. It's supposed to be about 72 degrees. Perfect evening to come watch a game. So we're pumped. We're excited. Our group can't wait to start this MLS season and see how far we can go.
That's Pat Onstad, GM for the Dynamo FC, here with Brandon Scott. Pat, I really appreciate your time. Best of luck, best of wishes in the opener, the home opener, and throughout the year, man.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.